Thank you so much. Thank you. And in Mr. Duffett style, let's go on to the agenda. Will I ask your permission to discuss who I am, what is Kamailio in 250 words or less, why you should move users to Kamailio, and I understand your fears, registration, different types, making it happen, and then any questions, which is my favorite part, and you can ask anything. Anything about Kamailio, API BAM, whatever you like. Who am I? I am Fred. Done. My contact information's up there. I'm a dad. That's my daughter. VoIP consultant during the day. Started API BAM, which is a free service out there to help you protect your servers. It has honeypots and just gets attacked with HTTP and SIP, and then gives you those active IPs to block. I'm based in Florida, had a bakery with my wife before COVID, and it's gone. And then I love backpacks, so if you see me staring at your backpack, please, I'm not creepy. I'm really into backpacks. All right, so what is Kamailio? Kamailio is an open source SIP server. It's stable and mature, 20 years young, very powerful, very lightweight, which makes me the perfect spokesman, and it's modular. So you load what you need, much like FreeSWITCH, and everything with that aspect. Kamailio's been around for a long time. You've heard it talked about here. Basically, all it does is SIP, with a lot of exceptions, like it can help you with WebSockets, things like that. But Kamailio is there to help you navigate SIP. It does it fast, efficient, and lets your media servers be media servers. When we say light and powerful, 300,000 registrations with 4 gigs of RAM is not out of the question. 5,000 calls per second, not a problem. 3,000 calls per second, sustained for over 5,000 calls on a Raspberry Pi. Was a test I did a year ago or so when I was doing some Reddit tests, and I just went 5 million calls here and there. No problems whatsoever. It's fast, it's lightweight, solid. Solid since 2001. It's a SIP proxy server, a registrar server, so it handles registrations, it handles locations where those users are registered. It's an application server. It's a dispatcher server, which is where it really excels as a load balancer as well. And it can also handle SIP sockets. So it's a SIP socket server, so it lets you bridge everything together. So you could be TLS on one side of Kamailio and then UDP on the other. You could be WebSockets on one side, UDP on the other. You could be IPv6 on one side, IPv4 on the other side. It's great. So why would you move? 3 words: scale, performance, high availability. You start growing, problems start happening. That's where Kamailio's here to help you. But let's focus on registration. I'm just trying to move along. With registration, there's 2 main choices. And I've talked about this in the past. But the first one is to just move your users all off of FreeSWITCH to Kamailio, which is a really easy thing to do when you're starting out. It's harder when you've already have all your users on FreeSWITCH. It takes some time to plan and to move them over. And so for that, we have something called mid-registrar, which is a technique. It's not unique to us. I know that OpenSIPs has a module for it and everything like that. Ours is just normal Kamailio aspect of it. But what that does is it proxies the user registrations. So it says, all right, instead of you having to do, let's say, 1-minute registrations to FreeSWITCH to keep those NAT firewall holes open and everything like that, make it an hour. Okay, and then have Kamailio handle all that kind of 1-minute registration time. It will be a mid-registrar. It will be in the middle, man in the middle almost. Or you can offload, and when you offload, the authentication is handled by Kamailio, the location's handled by Kamailio, and the presence is handled by Kamailio. When you do a mid-registrar, all those functions are still handled by FreeSWITCH. All the authentication, the location is kind of handled by both, but and the presence is all handled by FreeSWITCH. I think that if you have an existing deployment, you should start with a mid-registrar, buy yourself some time, to then migrate to an offloaded type of performance. And if it's a new deployment, start out with Kamailio handling everything from the start. How do you make it happen? This is my typical example scenario for when people start loading and thinking about using Kamailio. So you probably had FreeSWITCH running, and then you thought it was overloaded, so you switched some customers to maybe 2 FreeSWITCHes, and then before you know it, you were on 3 or 4, and now you figured out that there's a problem and we need to come up with a solution, right? So in this case, the 4 blue servers are media servers. I would like to have, you know, like a file server for long-term files, like whether that's NAS or something. You know, something like Redis for cache, long-term storage, database of choice, and then maybe 2 Kamailios for high availability to handle the carrier side, a few Kamailios to handle user registrations and authentications, and then location servers. What we're talking about now is this user and authentication registration area. So those 3 servers there, gateway nodes, basically. So this is where your registration, authentication, and location will happen. The authentication, you can do it any way you want. You could do it via Redis. It could be a database. It could be an API, token, whatever you want. We can handle it there. It could be IP-based, you know, however, whatever authentication method you would like, we could use. Standard, of course, all the SIP protocols, so username, password, all the types of hashing there, and we'll handle it. It could be TLS, WebSocket, and we can bridge that to SIP on the other side. So we can handle, you know, WebSocket on one side, SIP on the other, and you can even switch authentication methods. So if you wanted your WebRTC or your WebRTC to be token-based, for example, with a JWT or something, no problem. And then SIP be username, password, no problem. You can handle things however you'd like. Multi-tenant, multi-domain, however you want it. Through the use of something like RTP Engine or RTP Proxy, you can also do media and proxying bridges. So on one side, you could be normal RTP. On the other side, Kamailio can help transition that so it's SRTP to the client or DTLS to WebRTC, however you'd like. I like to then have location nodes, and those are just nodes that would help, let's say, FreeSWITCH just easily identify where to send the users, or in the case of you having, let's say, an extension that's allowed to register more than once, it might have to send it to 3 different nodes because, you know, you've allowed their WebRTC or their WebRTC client to register one place, you know, through DNS, something else registered another place, and their handset registered somewhere else. Location server can handle that. It also, generally for me, is a good place to run presence. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. PSTN nodes, that's where we do carrier services. I like to separate that. You don't have to, but I like to just because it keeps things simple. You know, for example, they don't have to handle registrations at all, things like that. It just keeps it more secure. And then FreeSWITCH will handle everything dealing with media, anything like that. And I like to have everything on the inside be UDP. So the mid-registrar, okay, and don't worry about it being small text. At the end, the last slide, I'll have where these slides are located, and you can copy everything there, as well as the links that I have listed. So I'll have all those at the end where you can just quickly grab them. But there's some examples that came out at, I have one, a mid-registrar config. That's where this is from. It's as simple as taking your registration, saving it, and then if you get a 200 back from the server, from FreeSWITCH, and then you saving it and handling it there. There was a presentation at Kamailio World this year, a really good one, and I have a link to the video as well as his GitHub config samples. So we can get those later. So mid-registrar, it's nothing crazy. You know, you're looking at a handful of code. And then the beautiful thing here is that there's no changes that you have to do to your existing FreeSWITCH. Your FreeSWITCH just runs like it is. This is put in there, makes your FreeSWITCH, takes a little bit of the load, the registration load off of it. FreeSWITCH will perform better while you transition to scalable architecture. It's a good transition. When you offload, you have your users connect directly to a gateway Kamailio, and we'll get into, I'm kind of glossing over some of the authentication because today we're going to have a lunch and learn from Daniel, who's the founder and main contributor of Kamailio, and he's sitting in the audience today, and there's a lunch and learn for Kamailio, and he's going to discuss some user authentication methods and things like that. But this is the one that connects to users, right? They can connect however you want, TLS, TCP, WebSockets, UDP, however you want. It then moves that to UDP and regular RTP to the location server. It provides all your SIP edge router security. It can do IPv6 to IPv4 transitions, however you want, something like that. The RTP proxying for SRTP, DTLS, and you can deploy as many of these nodes as possible. All right, we all know that on SIP, you can do a tremendous amount on one server. You start getting into TLS handshakes and things like that, you can do a lot less. All right, it's just the nature of life. And so with this architecture, that's fine. You just add more. Kamailio is 100% open source. We don't have commercial modules to worry about, anything like that. There's no license costs. Deploy these as much as you want. It's not going to hurt our feelings. It's open source. You use it as you'd like. So, run nodes as you want. Don't run them all in one cloud. Run them in many clouds. Make an architecture that you feel comfortable with, that's solid and stable. The location server then receives, and I have an example coming up. It receives a little message saying, okay, this user is at this gateway node. It also handles your presence. It doesn't handle media at all. That's why there's a lot fewer of these, because these things can handle, literally millions of registrations. And this can also handle like your push and resume type of suspension of transactions. So WebRTC calls in, you need to do the API to push open to that WebRTC client so that it registers and then the call resumes. That can all be handled here, which is something that Kamailio excels at. This is how you would send location to your location server. There's two examples here, and again, they're small. I have it at the side. I also have a link to where I stole it from, which is a presentation that Daniel did in 2019. It gets stored in a memory table of Kamailio that we call hash tables. Daniel made a comment about it during his presentation. Hash tables, if you're not using hash tables, you're just doing something wrong. It is an internal memory storage in Kamailio. It's ridiculously fast. 2 years ago, I did a test of HTable versus Kamailio. If you're just running a small amount of calls, it doesn't really make a difference. You start doing thousands of calls per second, it is ridiculously efficient. Just way better. Fast, efficient, just phenomenal. Anyway, in the gateway node, you just make a new SIP method. In this example, we're calling it kuserloc. You send it, the location server receives it and saves it. Saves it to hash table. Call comes in, it looks it up. Oh, send it to this gateway node. You can have multiple of them, so send this user to these two ones and run transaction there. It's really simple. For presence, there's a really good blog article from, it's old, but it's still good and solid. It's from Emmanuel Schmidbauer, and it's controlling presence with PUA JSON. And what it basically does is allow you to use an API to trigger presence events. You don't have to do just an API. Seven in his presentation alluded to NATS, N-A-T-S, which for any of us in telecom is the worst named thing in the world because we hear the NAT part and we just shut down, right? But it's different. Think of it as a message queue for Golang. It's very good and efficient. It's a publish subscribe method. There's a built-in module in Kamailio for it, also from Emmanuel. He's a developer. And it allows you to distribute messages either through this NATs or you could just use APIs. So gateway forwards it off to a location. Location handles presence. FreeSWITCH can send an API call to the presence server saying, hey, this phone's ringing, this phone's answered, this parking spot needs to be activated, whatever you need, sends it off, and it gets activated. When it's time to clear it, clears it there. So it's simple, gives you a centralized location for those to handle. His description is linked there and also in the slides, which you can download at your leisure. Leisure. Pick one. So does this aspect scale? Here would be that example I gave before. You could split it into 2 regions. So I have one side on one coast, the other side on the west coast. Let's say America. It could be Eastern Europe, Western Europe. It could be, North America and Europe, or however you want. Who cares? The location servers would share information through a Kamailio distributed message queue, which is basically just keeping state within SIP. And as your calls grow, this scales immensely. You just add some more. You're doing really, really well, add some more. You're doing really, really, really well, and now you want to branch out into more regions? Not a problem. So does it scale? Yes. That is rock solid. This one will keep you going forever. You just add nodes as you need it. Everything works. You don't need a ton of location servers. I like to have one in each region just for stability, high availability. And if a region goes down, but that's it. They all just communicate with each other. Media flows nicely. Everything works. We're now in the question period. I tried to leave a lot of time open for questions. Again, anything, if you have any questions on Kamailio or anything to that nature. This is a picture of the cookies that the old bakery used to make. The slides are at pgpx.io cc for ClueCon 2025. So short little link there. Kamailio just started accepting donations. So we're an open source project. There's no commercial modules. You can make donations that will help pay for things like there's a request for building ARM packages, things like that. We have packages in Debian. I think Debian 13 is even going to use Kamailio 6, which is the current version. Debian 12 uses 5.8, which is a supported version. My contact information is qxork.com. And please always be kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. David's got a question. I'm going to run over to David, but before I do, what time is the Kamailio World Lunch and Learn today? 1 o'clock, is it? You will confirm. Okay, Daniel's going to look that up while I run the mic to David here. 12:45. 12:45 in the Signal Wire Lounge. Thank you, Nick. It's the Kamailio Lunch and Learn. And now, David, over to you for the first question.
Do you have any magic potion to handle transfers if you have calls going to different boxes? Like, how do you handle if a call is made on, comes to Kamailio, goes to FreeSWITCH box A, and then another call gets routed randomly to box B, and then somebody wants to do a transfer between 2 calls on 2 separate boxes?
That's a great question. So everyone heard because he's mic'd. If you didn't, just play the tape back. All right. So the question is, all right, I have a call, but it's gone to 2 different FreeSWITCHs, and they need to communicate. So you need something there to keep state within each other. If I'm running multi-domain, I like to try to keep all of my companies or all my tenant on one FreeSWITCH, just so that I can easily park and send it to the same one. If I'm doing it that way, I have that as an H-table setting that's distributed, so that I know that acme.fred.com all goes to FreeSWITCH 7 in LA or something. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is saying, okay, well, this call is there. I'm bridging it there, and somehow within X headers or something like that, say, hey, where am I looking it up? And you can either do that in, for example, in one of the slides, I put a cache, so that could be Redis, or it could be some sort of HTable lookup in the location server that says, this call I need to bridge to. I'm coming in to get to this call ID, or I'm coming in to get to this UUID, whatever, and then that says which server it goes to and goes from there. Within FreeSWITCH itself, you can also do a UUID_bridge and have it go, instead of doing it where a call comes in, you could have it, okay, well, now it's time to bridge this call to another call together and bridge it that way. So many ways you can skin the cat there. My preference is to try to keep the company on one FreeSWITCH.
How about that, David? Did that answer your question? Full value. and I can exclusively reveal that if you want to talk to Fred directly, he's here for the full ClueCon conference, so you can approach him one-to-one. Any other questions? Jack's got a question for Fred. And Nick's going to bring you the microphone, Jack. There you go.
Just a quick one, Fred. So you're really good at cranking out performance and things. Do you ever configure Kamailio with in a Docker container configuration? I see Kamailio has really good, robust Docker support.
So thank you for the compliment, whether or not it's deserved or not. There are lots of people who use Docker and Kubernetes. We have some examples on Kamailio World presentations, which are easily found on the Kamailio World channel on YouTube, of people describing using Kubernetes and things like that for that. I'm not one of them. I was hoping to get out of this business before IPv6 hit, and I just really haven't spent much time with Docker. I don't particularly have a reason why. I just grumpily don't want to.
Oh, no, don't be too grumpy. I have clients who just have to have things in containers. Does it kill it? Does it wreck it?
No, it's fine. Okay. It's fine and it's well run. Here's the problem that I have with Docker, right? It's not just that they're running Docker in the cloud on a virtualized machine that's probably on another virtualized aspect. And the more I virtualize something, the worse it is, right? And so when I'm trying to be high performant, and it's not like I need to constantly grow Kamailios. Generally, if I need to add a new Kamailio, I have weeks or months notice. I can build that up on traffic because it can handle a lot. So because of that, I like it to have its own container, its own server. Thank you. But which works really well with other tools that people like, such as Ansible or Puppet or Chef or something like that. So I can script a container, script the maintenance, everything like that. But as far as it being Dockerized, at that point, troubleshooting becomes a nightmare. And with the type of load that you have on Kamailio, it makes it more difficult, because am I running into a packet per second issue because of the Docker container, because of the host that is hosting all the Dockers, or because of the cloud platform that arbitrarily is saying that, hey, because the server that you chose is maxed out at an unpublished packet per second limit, things like that. And the clients that I have that have run into Docker, or that have insisted on running as Docker, have run into lower performance that's not what you would expect if this was a real dedicated system.
It sounds like the summary is orchestration without containerization. Thank you for your question, Jack. Next time one of your clients wants a container, suggest Tupperware. I think it's the order of the day. One more question for Fred before we go to our break. Has anybody got that? Was that you, Clint? Did you have a question, or was that a random act of... Okay, fair enough.
No, he's just blowing us off.
Fair enough. Okay.
Just to throw on the, again, that's just my opinion. And there are people like Sean McCord, who's discussed a lot. He would sit there and tell me I'm absolutely wrong on this, and that Kubernetes is the way to go, and I'm too slow. So, we do have presentations out there with that differing opinion. So Kamailio is fully supported in Docker and Kubernetes.
The great thing about this community is, despite that difference, it's never led to a fist fight, has it, Fred?
No, I love Sean.
There you go. Okay.
Disagree with him, but I love him.
Right, we're going to go to a break, but before we do, let's give one more big round of applause for Fred Posner.
Thank you.